All right, let's dive right in to another deep dive with today's topic. CRB listings in Kenya. Specifically, how long does it actually take to get yourself off of that list after you've already paid off a debt? And we've got some great insights from Debt Free Living 254. So this deep dive is really tailored just for you folks to help you on your journey to financial freedom here in Kenya. Let me paint a picture. We'll call him Alex. Alex took out a loan, and he unfortunately ended up defaulting on it. It hurt his credit score, obviously. But then even after he repaid the entire thing, that CRB listing, it just wouldn't budge. It's like a stain that you just can't get out.
Yeah.
This happens to people a lot more than you might think, right?
It does, yeah. A lot of people think, oh, once I pay it off, it just magically disappears. But there's a whole process behind it.
Okay, so let's break down that process. What actually happens once someone like our friend Alex here settles that loan?
Well, first off, the lender, they're legally obligated to update the CRB database. And they've got 7 working days to do it, from the day the loan is fully settled. Now, in a perfect world, that would be it. Everything would be smooth sailing. But sometimes, things fall through the cracks.
So it's not as automatic as you might think.
Exactly. It really pays to stay on top of things. So once the lender sends their update, you've got TransUnion and Metropol, the credit bureaus here in Kenya. They step in to verify everything. They check the lender's info against their own records. And if everything matches up, then they'll change the listing status to cleared from default.
That's good news for Alex, right?
Yeah.
But why doesn't the listing just vanish at that point?
Well, here's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Even with a cleared status, the CRB listing, it stays visible for 5 years.
5 years. Wow, that's a lot longer than I expected. So what's the thinking behind that?
It's not meant to be a punishment or anything like that. It's more about building a track record, It's like your financial history. That cleared status, it shows responsibility. It shows potential lenders that, hey, even though there was a bump in the road, the debt was handled. And that plays a big role in rebuilding your creditworthiness over time.
So it's less about being penalized and more about demonstrating growth and accountability.
Exactly. And remember, Alex, just like everyone else, he has the right to access and monitor his CRB status regularly. What he learned from this whole experience is that being proactive, both with the lender and the CRB, is absolutely crucial for getting your finances in order.
And that brings up a really important point. Debt Free Living 254. They're big advocates for, well, a debt-free lifestyle. How does this whole CRB situation fit into that philosophy?
Well, CRB listings and credit scores, they're a part of the financial system, that's for sure. But they don't define your overall financial well-being. Debt Free Living 254, they want you to strive for a life where you just don't need to borrow money constantly. It's about taking control and building a solid financial base where debt isn't a recurring problem.
So it's about shifting the focus from constantly managing debt to achieving real financial independence.
You got it. The goal is to rely on borrowing as little as possible. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that all debt is inherently bad. Let's say you're thinking about a mortgage, which is obviously a huge financial commitment. Even Debt Free Living 254 acknowledges. But in certain cases, strategic debt can be okay.
So there are some nuances to that no debt rule.
Yeah, definitely. They especially emphasize the importance of a big down payment, at least 20% for a mortgage. That shows financial stability, it shows responsibility.
Interesting. So it's not about avoiding debt completely. It's more about making informed choices, decisions that align with your long-term financial goals.
Precisely. When you understand how CRB works, the clearing process, and the principles of debt-free living, you're empowered to make choices that truly benefit your financial well-being.
That's a really powerful takeaway. It's about taking control and aligning your financial choices with your values and aspirations. If we think about Alex again, yeah, he went through that whole CRB thing, and it must have been frustrating for him to see that listing stick around, even after he paid off the debt. But he did learn a lot about financial responsibility. What advice would you give to someone like him, based on what we've learned from Debt Free Living 254?
Well, it's essential to remember that a CRB listing, it can feel like a setback, sure, but it doesn't define your financial future. Debt Free Living 254 really stresses that the key is consistent effort. Consistent effort towards financial stability. Imagine this. 2 different scenarios. In one, someone's constantly taking out loans, struggling to make ends meet. In the other, someone is living within their means. They're saving diligently and building a strong financial foundation. Now, the impact of a CRB listing in those 2 situations is going to be drastically different.
Wow, that's a really great way to put it. It really shows you how important it is to build that solid foundation, regardless of any past financial mistakes. So, practically speaking, what steps can someone take to really embrace that debt-free living approach?
Well, Debt-free living 200 to 54, they're big on creating a realistic budget, understanding where your money is actually going, and finding areas where you can cut back. They also talk a lot about the power of saving, even if it's small amounts, but consistently. It's all about shifting your mindset, you see, from wanting everything right now to delaying gratification.
Makes sense. Making smart choices today. That'll benefit you in the long run. And this reminds me of something else they talk about, the whole needs versus wants thing.
Ah, yes. Debt-free living 254, they encourage people to really think about what they truly need versus what they simply want. It's about breaking free from those impulse purchases and learning to prioritize essential expenses.
So it sounds like it takes a real shift in perspective, moving away from that consumerist mindset and embracing a more mindful, intentional way of handling your finances.
Absolutely. It's understanding that real financial freedom, it doesn't come from all the stuff you buy. It comes from living within your means and building a secure future for yourself. They advocate for focusing on financial goals like saving for a down payment on a house, starting an emergency fund, investing in your education, things like that.
It's about aligning your spending with your values and aspirations, which really connects back to their message about achieving financial freedom. But let's circle back to the CRB listing itself for a minute. We've talked about the long-term strategy of debt-free living, but are there any immediate steps someone can take to address the listing head-on?
Definitely. Being proactive is key here.
No.
Make sure the lender has given the CRB the right information, showing that the debt has been settled, and if there are any inaccuracies on your report, you have the right to dispute them with the credit bureau, either TransUnion or Metropol. This is why it's so important to check your CRB report regularly, which, by the way, you can do yourself.
So it's not just about waiting those 5 years out. You can actively take steps to make sure the information is accurate and address any discrepancies. That goes back to what we were saying before about being proactive and informed.
Exactly. The listing might still be there, but taking those proactive steps, it shows financial responsibility, and that can really help you in the long run, especially if you're ever in a situation where you need to prove your creditworthiness, like for that mortgage with the 20% down payment we were talking about.
Right. So in this case, knowledge really is power. The more you understand about the system, the better equipped you are to navigate it. Debt-free living 254, they really hit on something crucial. Just because a CRB listing is part of your past doesn't mean it has to control your future.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive, making smart financial choices, and embracing the principles of responsible money management. Debt-free living 254's whole approach. It encourages you to look at things differently. Instead of being afraid of CRB listings, focus on building a strong financial foundation, a foundation that can withstand any challenges that come your way.
That's a great way to think about it. It's all about taking control and building resilience. Now, for our listeners who are really intrigued by this whole debt-free living concept and want to dig a little deeper, where can they go to find out more?
Well, Debt-free living 254, they offer a foundational course that goes into all these principles in detail. It's designed to give people the knowledge and tools they need to achieve true financial independence.
Fantastic. Sounds like a really valuable resource for anyone who wants to improve their relationship with money. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's summarize the key takeaways for our listeners.
What we've learned today is that getting off the CRB list, it's a process. It's not something that happens overnight. Clearing your debt is a vital step toward financial recovery, even if the listing stays visible for a while. But remember, a CRB listing is just one chapter in your financial story. It doesn't have to define the whole book.
Exactly. And while dealing with CRB listings in Kenya might seem complicated, it's crucial to keep those golden rules in mind. Be proactive, stay in communication with both your lender and the CRB, and check your credit report regularly to ensure everything is accurate.
You're absolutely right. The journey to financial freedom, it might have some bumps along the way, but with knowledge, commitment, and a shift in perspective, it's a destination worth striving for.
I couldn't agree more. Well, that brings us to the end of this part of our deep dive into CRB listings and the path to financial freedom in Kenya. We hope this information empowers you to take charge of your financial journey. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep diving deep.